Hey everybody, welcome back to Lake City News and Views, the YouTube extension of the Lake City News and Post. I am interim editor extraordinaire John Sweeney. So glad you could join us on this Wednesday. Just to let you guys know, we're trying a little different format with our vlog this week. This is actually how proper vloggers do it. Whatever, hope you enjoy. Let's move on to this week's edition, starting with the story on the very top of the front page. Businesswoman and philanthropist Darla Moore was honored as the 2011 champion for youth by the Boys and Girls Club last week. During the ceremony, Ms. Moore pledged that she would establish a Boys and Girls Club in Lake City within the next year, saying, quote, "There's no better time than now." New developments in the Rusty Smith saga. Of course, as you remember, Rusty Smith, county councilman from Lake City, is trying to become the next administrator of Florence County to replace Richard Starks when he retires at the end of the year. Now, the issue has sparked two small but rather relevant protests earlier this month. Protesters are basically saying that Smith's hire is a foregone conclusion, that he's already worked out some sort of a backroom deal with other members of council. Smith and other members of council say that's not true. Smith is saying being administrator would be another way he could serve the citizens of Florence County. This week's story actually deals with the possible awkward situations that his becoming administrator could create, specifically dealing with dual office holding. We spoke with the attorney for Florence County, and he gave us some insight into dual office holding. Even though it's not an elected position, Rusty Smith cannot hold the administrator's position and his council seat simultaneously, so he would have to resign. That's what the article talks about. Encourage you to read it. Let's move on to the main story, the main art. I know it's attracting your attention right there. You're probably thinking, John, why are people wearing graduation hats in the middle of August? School just started. I know, just chill, relax for just a minute. Those were the graduates of Florence School District 3's adult education program. That program graduated 60 students, and what this story deals with is that having your GED or your high school diploma actually gives you a much better chance of getting a job. Here in the PD, roughly 81% of the businesses require that you do have a high school education at minimum. That's what the story talks about. Again, encourage you to read that. One of the best parts about that story was I got to take a picture of this guy, coolest graduate I've ever seen in my life. That is a fact. Moving on one more time, what we call the right rail of the newspaper. Look at you learning stuff today. An E-Verify workshop took place last week at the Greater Lake City Chamber of Commerce. Local business owners and government officials learned about South Carolina's new immigration law that was passed earlier in the summer. This seminar specifically dealt with what that law says about employing illegal workers. Jim Knight, an administrator with South Carolina's Department of Labor Office of Immigrant Worker Compliance, try and say that 5 times fast, said that the state is not messing around with this law.
The South Carolina immigration law, in my opinion, is the toughest in the country.
If you want to find out why, then you'll have to pick up a copy of this week's paper or log on to SCNow.com. There are a lot of internet extras there, including the full interview with Jim Knight, as well as the piece that aired on News 13 last week. Well, that wraps it up for the news portion of our show today. Now we move on to the views, the little segment I like to call Editorial. This is where I give a summary of this week's editorial, which actually deals with E-Verify and South Carolina's new immigration law. Whatever your position is on the immigration debate, the one thing I can't stand are people who try to have it both ways, straddle the fence. Take, for example, Georgia and North Carolina. Both of these states have immigration laws newly passed. However, businesses can only be penalized for hiring illegal workers if they have over a certain number of employees. Meaning that if you are underneath the quota set by the state and hire an illegal worker, you don't have any penalties against you. Not the case in South Carolina. If you have just one employee and that person happens to be illegal, all the penalties come down on you in full force. That includes the possibility of having your business license revoked. That's the way it should be. That is the editorial in brief this week. Remember, go on to scnow.com for the rest of Lake City news, as well as news from across the PD and the Grand Strand. My name is John Sweeney, interim editor extraordinaire, hoping you have a fantastic Wednesday and a wonderful rest of the week. Take care.